to see you. How are you?
Nice to see you too. Thank you for joining me today for
Glad to do it.
Conversation. You and I have something in common. We both political science majors from USD, and we both, at one point or another, were taught by Doc Farber.
Oh, right.
And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of your memories about Doc Farber. Now, I've read that you were one of the group of students known as the Farber Boys, and that at one point Doc delivered a bit of tough love in a turning point of your academic career. If you could talk a little bit about that, and then about his overall influence in your life.
Well, when I was a senior in high school, I was kind of a whiz kid at Yankton. I'd been boy state governor, and I was the president of our class when I was a junior, and I was an athlete, and everybody had high expectations for me. And Dr. Farber had me come down to the university campus, but I was going to Iowa. And I did that, and then I kind of ran off the rails at Iowa, so I came back to South Dakota, and Farber said, you know, we have high expectations for you. Consider the possibilities, and I continued to go about my errant ways. And a lot of my friends were pretty puzzled by that, and Bill was very disappointed. So before I began my junior year, he took me aside. He said, you know, just get out of here for a while and get it all out of your system. And I was quite startled because no professor had ever said drop out till you figure out how you can get your legs back. And so I did, and 6 months later I came crawling back to him. I was working in Sioux City at the television station doing the weekend news and a lot of other stuff, and I said, there's a carpool. I can come up here and go to school from 8 until noon. And he filled out my class schedule, and he told me what grade point he expected from me, and he cracked down on me. And it's exactly what I needed at exactly the right time. And my wife, Meredith, who I've been lovingly married to for almost a half century, she'd given up on me, but when I kind of turned myself around, she came around and said, you know, I was probably too hard on you before, and we got married. Bill gave us a little rice bowl because he taught in Korea. He had a little brass rice bowl, and he had a note inside saying, may your rice bowl always be full. When I got to a certain place in life, I think I was the host of the Today Show, where I was anchoring the nightly news. Bill wrote me a note and said, I overwished your rice bowl was more full than I ever thought possible.
Wonderful. Did his mentorship continue post-graduation?
He did. I heard from him all the time. I'd get home after a long, grueling night on election nights or conventions or tragedies or presidential resignations, and there'd be a message on the phone. It would be Bill. Tom, that was just excellent. Or Tom, did you think about doing this? And he'd have a couple of suggestions for me. And he never hesitated to send students my way or to say, I'm coming to New York. I'll have a couple of our students with us. We expect to be entertained at 30 Rockefeller Plaza, and you'll take us to dinner. I mean, you just didn't have any choice.
That sounds like Doc, that's for sure. Doc unfortunately didn't live to see some of the political changes that have happened over the past couple of years. What do you think he would make of the landscape today in politics?
Well, I think in a way he'd be, excited is not quite the right word, but he would be challenging his students. He would say, this is a historic change in American politics. You've got to get involved. What's this all about? Where did it come from? And why has the Tea Party taken hold in the way that it has? Why are independents a larger party now than the Republicans and Democrats? What's the impact going to be? And then he would probably look at the economics of public policy and say, what are we going to do about that in South Dakota? You know, we're still operating like it's the beginning of the 20th century. It's the beginning of the 21st century. And we've got to get out of the horse and buggy days, and how are we going to change that? And he would be challenging his students to be thinking about that.
You mentioned some of the challenges that we face right now in today's America, and you've written extensively about what you call the greatest generation. They became one of the most productive and innovative generations ever. What would you say to someone of my generation or current students at USD who want to somehow come together and meet today's challenges in a similar fashion?
Well, I think you have to step up. You know, everybody's been kind of riding a boom here for the last few years, and then it cratered. You know, the economy collapsed all around us. And it's going to have a profound effect on this country and where it finds itself in the world. When Bill Clinton came out of that recession that was at the tail end of the George Bush presidency and the beginning of Bill's, or when Ronald Reagan came out of a very sharp recession in the first 2 years of his administration, we didn't have India and China on the horizon. And oil was $15 a barrel or $12 a barrel in those days. There were lots of American jobs in traditional manufacturing. All that has gone away. And so We have to be much more imaginative. We're going to have to be tougher on each other about what our priorities are, because it's no longer just wave a wand and say, I'm America, I can do whatever I want to. At the same time, I find that very exciting. 100 years from now, I've been saying to audiences, historians will judge our time not just by how President Obama does or what the Tea Party does. We're all involved. They're going to say, did that generation measure up?
When you left the anchor's desk, and with the departure of Dan Rather and Peter Jennings, a lot of people mourned the loss of the objective, credible newscaster, and a lot more people are getting their news from sort of ideological cable news outlets. What do you make of that, and is there any way back?
No, we move on, and what I say to audiences is that there's still a lot of places that you can turn to get what we describe as objective news. That's almost impossible in a pure sense to have, but you have many more choices now, but you have to be more proactive as a consumer of news. You can't be a couch potato. A lot of people in this country grew up, went to the morning, to their front stoop in the morning, got their paper, watched a little bit of the Today Show, watched me at night, or Dan, or Peter, or before us, Walter Cronkite, and that was good enough. Now you got to be a lot tougher about where you get the information. Does it hold up? Does it retain credibility over a long period of time? I say to audiences, you've got to bring the same kind of skepticism to where you get your news as you do to when you buy a car or a shirt or an appliance of some kind. And there are a lot more choices out there. Now you can see the BBC, or you can see an expanded Jim Lehrer report, for example. So there are a lot of places to still get the news. Brian Williams, Diane Sawyer, Katie, they're doing a good job. They just have a lot more competition around them.
Right. Great. I just have two more quick questions. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about Dakota Days, and if you had any fond Dakota Days memories that you wanted to share with us and our readers.
Yeah, I do. I remember one Dakota Day, it was a terrible raging blizzard, and everything was kind of immobilized. And I had brought a date in from the University of Iowa. She was from the North Shore of Chicago. I think she thought she landed in Siberia. She couldn't believe what we had going on. And when I was a senior, I was a Dakotan, and I was at that point very involved with Meredith, and we had a little cadre of us who kind of hung out at a place called the Alamo, which is where I lived. It was an old convertible laundromat. We had a pretty raucous party the night before, and my parents came over on Saturday morning, and my mother had a great stunt. She called and said, President I.D. Weeks is coming by later. His son was a friend of ours. And so we all rushed home and cleaned it up in about 20 minutes, and Mother said, I was pulling your leg. I.D. Weeks is not coming, but you needed to do something about this. So it worked pretty well.
Good deal. One other question. I think by any reasonable measure, your life story is the tale of someone who's made it. How did you know? At what point did you know that you had made it? Some people of note that I've read say that it's when they were parodied on SNL. Was there a moment that it clicked that you said, yeah, I've made it?
I never thought in those terms, really. When I got to be anchor of nightly news, that was a station in life I guess I never thought I would achieve. I suppose in the back of my mind it was an objective of some kind. But I knew that just because I got the job, I had not made it. I had to succeed at it. And in journalism, you have to succeed day after day after day. I have a couple of friends in New York who have been very, very successful as writers and as authors of big books. One is from Omaha, Kurt Anderson. Another one is Calvin Bud Trillin, who writes for The New Yorker, a great humorist. He's from Kansas City. And when we get together, I often say, don't you have the feeling that somebody's going to tap us on the shoulder any day and say, okay, you got to go back now? And they all agree with me. So I think that helps keep us going. So I've never thought I've made it. I've just got to keep earning it every day.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
It's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Glad to do it.
Thank
okay.
you very much.
My pleasure.